you know, if only I could win the lottery, if only I had lots and lots of money, my life would be so much better, I'd be so much happier. You're wrong, you know, we're all going to die. So why pine for those foolish things that you can't attain? Is it possible to buy friends for the friendless, to buy talent for the talentless? Of course not. But my friends, even worse than that, be careful how you make your wishes, because there are forces, there are ones out there who can grant you that wish. And then the worst of it all will be not that you will be shackled to that decision for the rest of your days, but beyond. Let me tell you what happened back in old Russia, my own country, old Russia. There once lived an old man and his babushka. They lived in a beautiful little village, in a tiny little cottage, near a large town with a dark factory. And this couple, they had known good times, they had known hard times. They were not poor, but they were not rich either. They had seen the cavalcade of life go by. They had seen governments rise and fall. They had seen the mighty come down and the small rise up. And now, in the winter of their age, their whole life revolved around their pride and joy, their beautiful son, their 20-year-old son, Ivan. Ivan was a beautiful boy. He was a model student. And he worked in that dark factory in the town nearby their little village. And one day, this couple, they were sitting around the breakfast table with their son Ivan, and they were discussing this and that, and they heard something coming up the path to the little cottage, and they heard a knock on the door. And when they opened the door, there was a stranger in the doorway. He was a traveller. He was looking for hospitality. Well, the Russian hospitality, of course, is legendary. How could they refuse him? And so they invited the stranger in. And they discovered that the man was a wonderful speaker. He was a storyteller beyond compare. And of course, the Russian storytellers are renowned. So how could their hospitality be refused? It is legendary. And so this traveller, although he was not an old man, he was not a young man either, but when they looked at him, sometimes from the corner of the eye, he looked almost ancient, and then it was gone. And he told them wonderful stories and tales of how he had travelled abroad. He had seen kindness and cruelty. He had met the wise and the powerful, beggars and thieves. And he had tranced them for most of the evening. And the singing song he had was glorious. And so that night they went to bed and they slept soundly. They had beautiful dreams. And in the morning the stranger gathered them around the breakfast table and he said, "My dear friends, I have been so moved by your hospitality, by your wonderful warmth and generosity and your sincerity. And I have seen very little of this kindness in a dark and cruel world." And so from his haversack he took out a little leather pouch. He said, "I have travelled the world over and I have seen many things. And I would like to leave as a token of my gratitude to you this token of my appreciation." And he withdrew from the little leather pouch a small, mummified monkey's paw. He said, "This monkey's paw has the power to grant you 3 wishes. If you hold it in your hand and make 3 wishes, 3 times each, your wish will be granted." But my friends, of course, you must choose very wisely, because once the wish has been granted, there is no road to return. There is no turning back. And so the old couple, while they appreciated the friend's reciprocation, all of them, Ivan and the old man and his wife, his babushka, they felt this strange unease, this dark, almost terror coursing through their bodies, but they kept their place. And so when the stranger was gone, they put the little leather pouch with a monkey's paw on the mantelpiece, and they didn't go near that damn thing for the next 2 days and 2 nights. They said to themselves, "Such foolishness. How can we possibly have any more than we already have? We have our son Ivan, we have our health, we have our friends." And then they thought to themselves on the morning of the third day, well, you know, the roof has been leaking. The fence could be mended. Our son Ivan worked so hard, perhaps a few little treats that he could enjoy. Perhaps under the circumstances, 1,000 rubles would not be too much to ask for. And so that evening, the old man went to the mantelpiece. He took down the little leather pouch and he withdrew that horrid object, the monkey's paw. He held it in his hand and he said, I wish we had 1,000 rubles. I wish we had 1,000 rubles. I wish we had 1,000 rubles. And the monkey's paw moved and it twitched and it wriggled and it crawled out of his hand and it crept across the floor and it mocked them. They were terrified. They did not go near that damned object for the next 3 days and 3 nights. On the morning of the fourth night, on the morning of the fourth day, the old man and his wife were sitting at the breakfast tables of Husky. They were chatting about this and that. And they heard something coming up the path to their little cottage, and there was a knock on the door, and when they opened the door, there was a stranger at the door. He was a gentleman, a very splendidly dressed gentleman, spectacles and grey hair and fine suit. But the expression on his face, my friends, it was so sad. He said, my very dear friends, I have been ordered to come here from the factory. You see, this morning, we still have not concluded what actually happened, but your son Ivan, the wonderful worker that he was on top of the machinery and something happened and he fell into the machinery and he was mangled and he is dead. We are so sorry. And he took out of his pocket an envelope and he said that management has sent me to give you as compensation for the loss of your son, your wonderful working son Ivan, 1,000 rubles. Ah, my friends, how could the old couple's grief be measured for days and days after the funeral? Oh, all they could do was sit and weep until there were no more tears left. And then the old man, he said, do you see, Babushka, how we have been punished for our greed and our stupidity. We have sacrificed our beautiful son Ivan for 1,000 miserable rubles when 1,000,000 rubles could not have replaced him. But Babushka, we still have 2 wishes left. Let us try and get our son Ivan back. And so that night, with the heaviest of hearts, the old man went again to the mantelpiece. He took down the leather pouch. He withdrew the monkey's paw. He held it in his hand and he said, I wish our son Ivan was back with us again. I wish our son Ivan was back with us again. Oh, I wish our son Ivan was back with us again. And again the monkey's paw moved and twitched and wriggled, and it leapt out of his hand and crawled across the floor. And now the couple were more terrified than ever before in their lives. And all they could do was stand there and then sit and huddle and weep until there were no more tears to be had. And that very same night, around midnight, they heard something coming up the path to their little cottage door. Who is out there? Please, who is out there? In the name of God, who is out there? But the old man already knew what was behind the door, for when he opened the door, there in the doorway stood his son, Ivan, mangled, and the grave mold still clung to his flesh. The old man screamed, he slammed the door, he turned and he ran to the monkey's paw, he picked it up and he said, I wish our son Ivan was back in his grave. I wish our son Ivan was back in his grave.